I'm excited to be here today to share the new and fourth historic district here in Edgewater Glen. We are here. You can see a great view of one of the homes on one of the streets on the under block of West Glen Lake. For us, our period of significance was sort of a fancy term they like to use in the SHPO office, the State Historic Preservation Office in Springfield, is from 1890 to 1928. So that's the main building of the homes and styles that you'll see in what I'm going to review today with everyone. And then we were under criteria C for architecture. The State's Historic Preservation Office has 3 criteria, and I'll get into those, A, B, and C. And we met C, which is they consider the most prestigious, which is for architectural significance, which is really great. So I put together this table of contents just to give you guys an idea of what I'm going to chat with you today, looking at things sort of globally and then giving you an example. So I'm going to look at the National Register of Historic Places, what it is. There's a lot of, when we had our public meeting, I would say like a year ago, and we're telling people in Edgewater Glen what we're doing, there was a lot of let's call it frequently asked questions, like, hey, what does this mean, what doesn't it mean, that sort of thing. So I want to go through that. The neighborhood's history, Edgewater Glen specific history, the neighborhood's building survey is something we put together. We formed a special committee through Edgewater Glen Associations, which runs our neighborhood. And I want to talk to you about why we did that and how that was very important. Survey of the buildings, that is, I'll get into that. And then the different architectural styles, from the prairie style to Dutch colonial to even we have splatterings of the craftsman style and the bungalow. So I want to go into and review those styles and show different examples of that within the neighborhood. And then the incentives. One of the greatest things about being put in the National Register of Historic Places, and even other designations like Chicago Landmark and those sort of things, is there's lots of incentives, great incentives, that homeowners or even prospective people that want to move to an area on the National Register of Historic Places, you can take advantage of for restoration. It's incentive, it's in the word, right? You come and restore a home, or you fix your current home up, and there's lots of great incentives. And I'm going to walk you through what those are. And ones that, for my home, I'm going to walk you guys through an example of our house. Because we just finished our restoration of our home, and we just applied, and we're, just actually yesterday, they accepted our tax assessment freeze and our reimbursement for construction costs. Huge, 45% back on construction costs. We spent a lot of money. We spent almost $400,000 on our renovation, so we're getting about half of that back. I'll walk you through the pretty pictures as well and what we did. Okay, so the process. So like John was saying, I've lived in Edgewater for 13 years. We sort of worked our way up Glenwood. We were south of Ridge and worked our way up north of Ridge, up Glenwood. So we were at Berwyn and Glenwood, we were at Ardmore and Glenwood. And then when we were looking to buy a single family home, frankly, I didn't even know Edgewater Glen existed. And that's sort of on me, but I'm glad I didn't, because it was a discovery of this great gem, this hidden gem, and it got me really excited about moving to the area. And we were looking at a bunch of homes. We looked at a few homes in Lakewood, Balmoral, and we couldn't find the right home, quite the right home. And then we were looking at Norwood and found this house we fell in love with. It was a John Lewis Cochran house, who was the founder of Edgewater. And it was the same house, just a different skin on it, that we looked at in other neighborhoods. So I found that to be really interesting. The American Foursquare, right? 4 rooms in the bottom, 4 rooms in top, 4 bedrooms. So usually it's a foyer, living room, dining room, kitchen sort of arrangement. I'll get into that. So that ignited the process of what is this National Register of Historic Places? What is this? So we moved in, or we didn't move in. We bought the house in 2022, and we're like, what do we do with it? We're going to live there, but we have to restore it and all the good things. But I heard through the home buying process what the National Register of Historic Places was. We were familiar with it sort of on Clark Street, but it doesn't really say it. Bryn Mawr District has a little bit of that on their signage and the like. And so when we moved here, I found out that we had an association, the Edgewater Glen Association. So I reached out to our board president, sent him a instant message on Facebook or something, and was like, why aren't we on the National Register of Historic Places? Like, what is, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Didn't get a response. And so I followed up with him, and then he emailed or contacted me back saying, oh, it's great. Can you come to our meeting? Sorry for the delay. Like, this is a great idea. And this is 2025 now. This is December of 2023. So it's basically the end, like the year is done. I showed up to the, I may have been the end of November. I showed up to their board meeting. We have board meetings, public board meetings every month. And I came and proposed the idea, and it was unanimous. We were like, yes, like we should do this. We formed a special committee. I was leading that committee. There was 3 other people in the committee: Daniel Otto, Cindy Epsy, and then Anthony Nova, who's sitting here as well. Hi. And we formed the committee, and I was like, oh, great. Okay, now we have to get this done, because I said we're doing this. So, long story short, this outlines sort of my version of the process, and there's a lot of people involved. So, the biggest thing is, what is the National Register of Historic Places? It's an act that was formed in 1966. Every state has a natural, so it's a federal act that has all these guidelines for listing. It's a collection of more or less our historic treasures, if you will, throughout the United States. And it can be a sculpture, it can be a commercial building, it can be a residential building. They call it a resource. And then, so from this, I went to their website. This is why I posted this. Came across this document, contacted the SHPO office in Springfield, and they're like, oh, well, we're not even going to look at anything until you send us your survey. And I was like, oh, great, I have to go put together a survey. Happy to. So we formed this committee, we put together a survey, and then I also engaged a historical consultant, Garino Documentarians, Jean, who leans, that's her last name, and reached out to her, and she's like, well, I used to live in that area, I love that area, I know Edgewater Glen, I'll help you out. And together, we put together an action plan, because we had to submit and present to the Springfield office. This is December 2023, we needed to present and get it approved in person in October 2024 if we wanted to get it approved, because then it goes to Washington, to the U.S. Department of Interiors, who heads all of that, to get it approved. So it's this whole sort of process. So I was like, okay, I can do this. We just need to meet all these deadlines. So we put together this committee. I engaged Edgewater Historical Society, who is critical in having all this information of our area ready to go. And that was one of the biggest things, I think, was having the Edgewater Historical Society, having that information either on their website. Regina and myself scheduled a meeting at the museum and sort of went through what we needed. And she had a lot of experience putting districts on the registry, so she knew the people at the office, who I started to know as well. And it's a small group. It's like 2 people running the show there, which makes it, having that community peer-to-peer was really helpful. And then, of course, another angle of this was the city of Chicago. We had to present to the Landmarks Commission before we can even submit our nomination, as they call it, which is the formal application, to have them even review it. So it's a council of 12 in Springfield that reviews everything you go down there in person. So all that was like these deadlines. And we had to take photographs of all the homes without any trees, the leaves blocking the trees. So it was like, oh, okay, we need to get going on this. So February, March, we went through and photographed everything. We had like over 4,000 photos. So my next slide is a little bit more of the history. So we had about 4,000 photos, and we had to format all those. And so I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. And it's a 500-page document we put together, just a survey, just for them to consider the neighborhood and to look at it. So a little bit about, just a little backing up here, the neighborhood history. So like I said, Edgewater Glen, and John was hinting at this, is really a gem. It's a very visually distinct residential neighborhood, comprised of mainly detached single-family homes, which are located within the larger Edgewater community of Chicago. So you have this dense, urban setting, these primarily single-family homes. And if not single-family homes, they're usually 2-flat or 3-flat. They're extra wide lot. Very unique. It's bounded by Broadway Avenue and Clark Street, east to west. and by the south side of Granville to Norwood Street from north to south. And it's comprised of 6 subdivisions, which is very unique. Lakewood Memorial was built by one developer, John Lewis Cochran. Ours were built by 6. Of subdivision, I should say, but it was built about like 4 or 5 developers. I won't get into that. It was created between 1890 and 1904 and was largely developed between 1900 and 1915. There was a depression, from my understanding, in the early 1900s, which halted home sales. So you look at the Sanborn maps, which is like a fire map, you can see like no homes, and then by the 1920s it was like completely full. So it's very interesting. And so Edgewater Glen and Lakewood Balmoral, these were 2 conceived areas of beautiful homes that were purposely built on wider lots to compete with the mansions along the lakefront, which is really interesting because it's like for the, I guess, the burgeoning upper middle class, if you will. And it was meant to appeal, the burgeoning at the turn of the century. So it's interesting that all those are mostly gone, and this is what's left. So it's really important. I felt it was my mission. It was really important to get more historic recognition, to preserve and continue the beautification of the neighborhood that everyone has so much pride in. And then the name Edgewater Glen is actually a new one. It was created in the early 1970s, when residents were forming a neighborhood association. And from what I was reading on the Edgewater Historical Society, they wanted the block club to be very successful, so they wanted to start it here. Lakewood Memorials, I think, was started in the late 1960s. And so they wanted to be successful, so it lended itself to that. And so they needed a name for the organization. And so Glen was chosen because they didn't want to be associated with Rogers Park, so they wanted to use Edgewater. And Glen was chosen because at the corner of Glen Lake and Glenwood, which is in the center, the right smack center of the neighborhood. So that's where Glen comes from. Glenwood, Glen Lake, Edgewater Glen. So, and then once we, and this is all information we had to put in our informational packet, 500-page informational packet to the state's office, just for them to look at our great neighborhood. And then the history and the architecture of the neighborhood is very distinct. So it was mainly before being developed, it was mainly farmland, and like I said, it was developed by multiple developers. I'm just going to skip sort of to this because it lists it. You can see here the neighborhood, the boundaries of the Edgewater Glen neighborhood. So from top, or let's go top to down. So we have, just so we're orientated correctly, that's North Granville, and then Hood, heading south, Glen Lake, Norwood, Elmdale. Elmdale's not part of, technically, the association, but it's part of a boundary, same with Clark and Broadway. But it's important to note these streets for orientation and also who owned the land. So starting with A, Thomas Milstead developed A and B, which is Hood and Glen Lake in the middle. And then C is Bronson Kemper, which is the top there. D is John Lewis Cochran, which is the 4th, and I think, final addition to what we call Edgewater. And that's D, so that's from Broadway to Glenwood. And what's really interesting about that street, it's a street I live on 1300 block, is there's the exact same homes that you would find in Lakewood Balmoral. There's actually twin homes. There's multiple ones. One of them is mine, and there's other ones that are very similar. They're not exact replicas, but they're the exact same floor plans, same architects. So it's like it's interesting how that works. They just sort of repeated it. And then E and F are the Krantz developments, which is to the west. You can see there from Elmdale all the way up to Granville. So and they're almost all shared architects who did a lot of these buildings. So that's where they're very similar, in similar style, and all built together between the period of significance. So when we're putting together the neighborhood survey, here to the left is the table of contents of that survey. It was enormous, a lot of work. So we all took all the photographs, we created these forms, and then what we did, and Jean, our historic consultant, what she did is she filled it in. And we filled in it was built approximately this time, because we had to use a lot of circas, because not all the information was available even when you looked it up. Some of it was, but we were times of the essence. So she can tell us, okay, this is not 1920, this is 1910. We said, hey, is it single family home, multi-unit, 2 flat, 3 flat, that sort of thing. And then she filled in the style. What was the wall material, wood siding? hipped roof? Was it asphalt shingle? The windows, were they double hung? Were they casement? All those architectural like nuances, growing up with this old house or something. Like I love that show growing up. So to me, it reminded me of that. And then the most important part is the description. And so you can see here are the 3 images of this. We had to take them all at angles. If you didn't take it at a certain angle, it would be disqualified. So it was very specific. And rightfully so. If you're looking at this for the first time, you need to see the architecture. You need to highlight it. So, and then the most important thing you can see is the evaluation of the National Register of Historic Places. That's what that acronym means right here. And then is it eligible? Is it a contributing resource? Is it not eligible? Not a non-contributing resource. So that's really important because you needed 51% contributing. I was like paranoid that the siding, all the aluminum siding would disqualify us for some reason. Nope, not an issue. They're like, actually all of them, even though it's aluminum siding, it looks historically accurate, so we'll keep it, and that's fine. I was like, okay, great. There's a couple houses, and I'll show you those. But because of this, out of all the properties, we're 97% contributing of all the properties submitted. It was over 400 properties, and including the garages, which is the most actually in Chicago, which is pretty amazing. So of those, I think it's 11 non-contributing resources. I really encourage them to restore their homes. But we can be 100%. So from that, we had an executive summary, so sort of what I was showing you, like this page. We had 10 pages of this, the history and architecture. And then, and this is a great image. This is, I think it's either Hood or Glen Lake during construction in the early 1900s. That was given to us by our friends at the Edgewater Historical Society.
Note how small all the trees are, and many of them are still around.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. All the heritage trees, none of the homes are original, but most of the trees are original too, which is pretty amazing. And that's Andrea and her efforts to document that. Thank you very much.
We also have a little handout at the back with history about the trees. So
great.
Thanks to Andrea for that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so history and architecture was another category, and then the evaluation, which is what I was explaining, and then the conclusions and the biography. Everything has to be sorted. It's like a history textbook. I mean, I find it fascinating, but it was a lot of work and fun work. I mean, we enjoyed it. Our weekends filled up quickly. These are some more buildings. So not only is it primarily single-family homes like this great building, and you'll see we have another photo of this house from the early 1900s. It's exactly the same. Looks exactly the same. This is on the 1300 block where I live on Norwood. This is not my house, but it's a 2-flat, extra wide lot, just showing it's a classical revival, multi-unit building, circa 1913. We had the original owner, which is Robert E. Armstrong, and the architect was J.F. Lovell. This is also, again, part of the John Cochran 4th edition. And then the house to my right, this is an interesting home because it's within the period of significance. It was built in 1923, which is not when a lot of the homes were built. A lot of the homes were built in the 1900s. But then the multi-units and the 3 flats, the multi-units, which is probably more than 3 units, were built in the 1920s. So that's something you'll notice around the neighborhood, and that's for anywhere as well, is that the homes usually came before the 2 flats and the 3 flats. Those came after, and then the multi-units came after that. So that's why you get sort of weird, like you get a house next to them. You're like, why is this next to like a big giant building? But it's the building, what they did, which is really nice, is they understood that, and they made sure that the building fit next to the house. It didn't look like this tall high-rise or something strange. Everything was kept really low, which is really nice and keeps the charm and the character of the neighborhood. And then this building, so this was built in 1923. The original owner, the architect was Edward Benson, and that's why I put this one in here. Edward Benson's a very famous Edgewater architect. He's, I think, designed, I forget the exact number, but he designed most of the buildings throughout all of Edgewater. Anywhere you'll see his, we own a few 2 flats and 3 flats, and our 3 flat is a Benson building. So this is very of high quality, a certain standard, and very famous Swede, I think. More history. Go to Edgewater Historical Society to get more information on Edward Benson. So the neighborhood's architectural styles. we have a variety of styles. So we have a total of 330 residential buildings, 321 which are contributing to the district. Nearly half of the contributing buildings, 156, comprise of vernacular versions of prairie style architecture, including boxy, American Foursquare subtype, and then the second dominant style is Queen Anne, 107, distinguished by its deeply pitched gable roof lines, although below the roof line. So the styles in Edgewater Glen are strongly resemble their American Foursquare counterparts. And so here's just a chart I put together of the different styles from ranging from Prairie, Queen Anne, Classic Revival, Craftsman, Dutch Colonial, Tudor Revival, Arts and Crafts, Chicago Bungalow, Italian Renaissance, and Vernacular. And of course I brought images, we're not going to look at like text slides. So I'll skip more of that. Now this is a very important slide. This is extremely critical, especially if you want to put either an individual building or you want to create a historic district. And you want to work with your local, or here in Illinois, you work with our local SHPO office, or State Historic Preservation Office in Springfield. You need to meet these, one of these criteria. And so I think it's really interesting. They have 3 criteria, and they have D, which primarily applies to architectural resources. So we're not digging up dinosaurs or anything. So we don't meet criteria D, but criteria A through C, you could meet. And so we strongly met criteria A, which is associated, which is not C, sorry. We did not meet A or B, we met C. But criteria C is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad pattern of history. So we didn't meet that because we're not like the Pullman Village, right? We didn't create a neighborhood and then it created something from it. And there's a little bit more nuance in that. So we didn't meet that. We're not associated with the local, statewide, or national significance. Criteria B is associated with the lives of people from the past. So we didn't have Abraham Lincoln living, in our district or in one of our homes or something to that caliber, or a famous Chicagoan who changed the world, that sort of thing. However, we did meet criteria C very strongly, which the resource embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, a period, or method of construction that's very unique, that represents the work of a master, possesses high artistic value, or represents a significant or distinguishable entity whose components may lack individual distinction, So we strongly met this criteria, and so we applied. We gave them an extended version of why, and what I was reviewing before, with all the different styles of architecture, from Queen Anne to Prairie style, to the variety, and they all were built between a period of significance. So it wasn't like, everything was built, 5 homes were built in 1900 and the rest were built in 1930. There's a strong development in style and vision that makes it unique and of quality and qualifies to be in the National Registry of this very prestigious distinction. So there's, like I said, after the survey, and they reviewed all the buildings and told us what's contributing based on their qualifications. And there were 411 of the buildings submitted. There's 411 contributing buildings, 349 residential buildings, and 62 garages, and 11 non-contributing buildings. So if you do the math, you divide that, you get 97%, right? You get that 411 divided by 422, and you get that high percentage. And there's a lot of great garages. I never knew that until I had to take photographs of all of them, because they wanted them as well, because they're on the property with the house, which makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to show some historic, and I have a lot, all this is more, the rest of the presentation is more pretty images and all the good stuff. So this is actually in the 1500 block of Glen Lake, and all these homes are here. The Chicago Block Club did a great article when we first heard the news in January that we were approved, and we were approved as a National Register District on just after Christmas, December 31st, 2024. So it was nice to have it sort of end the year with that. And this is the house I was talking about. This is on the 1200 block of Glen Lake. This is the early 1900s. I think mom's on the porch and her kids are playing on the sidewalk there. The porch is, the screen and porch is no longer there, but everything else is original. They added a historic sort of trellis style gate below for the porch for good reason, but everything else is exactly the same as it was back then. The siding's a little bit different, but still on the, no, it's actually the same. It was painted, but it was still the same, which is really interesting. It's someone knows whose house that is?
Yes.
Oh.
Somebody does.
Yeah, someone said something. Okay. Anyway, raise your hand. And then this is a great house on the corner of Greenview and Glen Lake, and it was actually when Weber, Krantz and Company were developing their parcels on the west, they lived in this house. They built this house for themselves, and now it's a private residence, and also faithfully restored as well. A great candidate for to be in the district. This is the map I was talking about before. The 1,500 blocks of Hood, Glen Lake, and Norwood Avenues in 1905, left in 1928. So from our research in the early 1900s, there was a depression, or a recession, I should say a depression, a recession. So a lot of people weren't buying homes, and so they're developing this farmland, these parcels, and then that passed, and then fast forward 23 years later, all of the neighborhood was filled in. And you can see here, which is really cool, the house and then the garage below. So that's how we determine what, also you can look at the garages and see if they're common brick. But some of the wood frame garages, they're like, oh, they look historically accurate, but are they the original garage? And we were able to determine that through research and then having Gene, our historic consultant, look at it as well. Okay, so going through the neighborhood, I just want to go through sort of a walk. If you're walking through the neighborhood, we're officially, considered a national park. So we do want people to come, have lunch, and then tour through and look at the buildings. There's 349 residential buildings. So as I said, 291 detached single-family houses and 58 multifamily buildings, and mostly two flats. This is the 1200 block of West Glen Lake Avenue, example of beautiful row of extra wide lot, two flats. And then here, the 1400 block of West Hood, South Side, Westview. Great, manicured lawns. No one has fences up, or it's very open and with setback lots. My lot, for our house, is a 35 foot wide lot. So you really feel spacious and sort of you're somewhere. This is the 1500 block of West Hood, South Side, Westview. More of those style homes, a mixture of prairie style to Queen Anne and the like. 1200 block of West Glen Lake, South Side View East. So you have a bit more, and a lot of these homes you can see they're sort of stamped and repeated. So it's nice that they're different colors. You tell them apart. But when you cut them open, they're all the same, for American Forest, where you walk into a foyer, or you walk into a side, or you walk into the living room type of space. It's really interesting. This is a 1300 block of West Glen Lake, South Side Eastview. Again, love open porches. A lot of these porches throughout the years have been closed in to extend the house, but recently we have some neighbors in the 1500 block of Glen Lake. They all opened their porches, and it's such a beautiful look to have the porches open and functional in that way. This is the 1400 block of West Norwood Street, South Side View East. You can see all these have the same floor plan, and then below, same 1500 and the same exterior facade, just different colors, which is quite charming. And then more of the 291 contributing houses, 264 which comprise the vernacular version of the prairie style. So this is more of that, 157, and then the Queen Anne style, which is 107. So here we have a great example of a Queen Anne style. They're a little bit more fancy, right? Essentially, the architecture a little more whimsical. Queen Anne style house at 1436 West Glen Lake, and then a great example, and my house is a prairie style house as well, at 1501 West Glen Lake. Just beautiful, intact, original fittings, brick on all four sides. This is wood frame, and then this is brick with a great dormer on top. And then here are some examples of the Queen Anne front gable, open and closed porches. You learn a lot about okay, this is Queen Anne, this is a half porch, this is a hip roof, this is half a porch. And so there's a lot of that, which is really nice because you start speaking their talk, in language. Just the front gable, open and closed porches. So you can see the open porch obviously doesn't have any of the windows or anything, and these are examples below of the closed porches. Still very charming and gorgeous. I'm not anti-enclosure. And then some great examples of Queen Anne side gabled and cross gabled open porches. So the gable is just an architectural style of the front of the house and how it interacts with the attic and the like. And so that protrusion from the front. So you can see all these front gables, different styles of it, which is quite beautiful. Just these guys need to update their porch, but it still met the qualifications. And this is a great example of Queen Anne hip roof. We've seen this house before. And this is another great example where the hip, it's sort of like a hip, it's like on one side of the house. So there's lots of examples. There's another mirror of this home on the block. It's a brown. They still have their shingles, same shingle color, the brown versus the green here. The siding that is. Here's a prairie style hip roof, front entry, open, full width porch. Some of the porches are half porches. These are full width. These are the full width of the home. And so these are all considered American Foursquare. Again, for that main reason that there's 4 rooms in the bottom, 4 rooms in the top. You can see the collection above and then the collection below. My house is actually, this is my house. Which is really interesting about our house. This is actually before we did some of the renovation. Some of it was after, but we recently put in some bluestone and got rid of the concrete pavers, which you'll see that in a minute. But what's really interesting about our house is it still has the stucco, what I call haunches, which are these guys on either end. Which no house in the neighborhood has that. I don't know why, but it's just it's been retained over the years, very unique. And then this is prairie style hip roof front entry, enclosed or partially enclosed full width porch. So you can get really complicated really quickly. And with all these different versions of the same type, you get this nice cohesive architectural feel throughout the neighborhood. It makes you feel very special and unique. More prairie hip roof. And these are interesting because you don't enter in the front, you enter in the side. So you can see all the side entrances here. That's because the lots, usually in the middle, or on the ends of the neighborhood, on the blocks, where the property lines were smaller, so they wanted to fit more homes. Other styles in the district. So we have 11 craftsman houses, we have 4 bungalow houses, and we have 4 Dutch colonial homes. And Dutch colonial has a little archway, it's very Dutch looking, on where the roof sort of canters. It's really interesting. They're very distinct looking. They're almost like a mix of Queen Anne and a little bit there. And then we also have an amazing collection of multi-unit buildings. And this is, I'm going to call it Marjorie because it's her building on the right here. This is one example of 4 flats in the district, and it has its original awning. This is the porte cochere in the middle here, which is quite amazing with the original chains. We have not random, but we have a Tudor house, or multi-unit building, apartment style building to the right, and then we have 1 of 2 larger corner buildings here, and these are very interesting because they're mixed into the neighborhood versus just being a row. And then we have 1 of 42 flats in the district, and I think I read something like Chicago has 19,002 flats. It's a very Chicago thing, and what's interesting about this neighborhood is that they're mixed in with all the...
I would guess the number's a lot more than that.
Is it more than... Okay, yeah. Maybe that's restaurants. Well, I'll get back on that. So here's the 1400 block of West Glen Lake Avenue, South Side View West. And then here's another example of a row of homes, 1500 block of West Glen Lake Avenue, North Side View West. And then I also put together, I call it like detail pages, because I just am a person of detail. And get out your photo camera. And there's so many images we took that didn't necessarily make it. We didn't need to put it in the survey, but we had some really great gems. So this is different architecture on all the different streets in the district, ranging from, and it's all still here too. So everyone really takes pride in all the finials and ornamentation is still here and still preserved and still maintained. So you can see here, this is a 2-flat, a shared wall 2-flat on Norwood, 1200 block in Norwood. This is in 1300 block in Norwood, a great are just a great brick detail, and all the different roof details and window lights. So like, yes, the windows, some of these windows are updated, but they're of the period. They still feel like they're part of the house. To the right, a great porch detail. This is on Glenlake Avenue, I think the 1400 block. And then this below is one of many, many beautiful stained glass windows. In our home, we had several that we found in the attic and had them restored. They were just sitting up there.
Justin and John, can we get these presentation on the website later? I mean, these are really beautiful pictures. So.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Wonderful.
I have to edit some of it, but like we'll get a good one up there. So here are some additional great historic details. Here's a hip roof example, porch detail with a classic iconic column, original entry door, craftsman style details with the upper right, a great brickwork. I mean, there's just so much great Chicago brickwork, and just great examples of brickwork here in the Edgewater Glen Historic District. And then again, this building, home, to the left, with the original Corinthian columns. You can see iconic because it looks like an eye, and this is Corinthian. Again, sort of tracing its way back to Greek and then Roman architecture. It's interesting how the evolution of that has evolved into the American foursquare and architecture. Okay, and then this is an exciting page as well because these are examples of contributing garages. So this is off of Glenwood. This garage was restored recently in the last 10 years. Original stucco work. They put the doors back. I think they refinished them. I was talking to the owner and they added a finial, and then they put a similar roof on, and then they kept it gutterless because they had original photos of it and it didn't have any gutters. And they leaded the windows, you can see here on the right, just to restore it. It's really cool because you don't really see a lot of sliding doors. You have to get out of your car and open them up.
Barn doors.
Yeah, barn doors, yes. But anyway, for the overall creature comforts. And then to the right is another contributing garage with a modern garage door opener, as all these do have garage doors on them. But you can see the original and restored structures and where the original openings were for the windows and the like. A lot of these, from what Gene was telling me, were used for horses. So a lot of the garage, that's why they're so small, and they had fireplaces in them to keep the horses warm. So a lot of the brick ones were. And then you had the modernization of cars. And so examples of the non-contributing buildings. So this is a great example at 1244 West Norwood, where it can be converted to a contributing building because this is built in the period of significance, but it's been altered so much that it doesn't look like anything anymore. It doesn't look like an American foursquare. And so this is what's really great about this is, whoever owns this house, they can actually restore it back to what it looks like and get, and apply for their incentives. Other buildings were built outside the period of significance. Here on the right, 1255 West Norwood. This is built, I think, in the 60s. And it's just, doesn't meet that qualification. It's complete stock. It's super modern, right? And then the one.
He had a famous owner. He was the president of Chicago Works.
Oh, okay. And sometimes you sort of wish, like, why did you build that? But like, it's there. And then 1542 West Glen Lake. These were built, I think, in the 50s and 60s. Some of these homes and the empty lots that weren't sold, or they were sometimes they were torn down, from what I was told. So a few of those, but only 11. Which isn't too bad, and some of them can be converted back. So, what's another great benefit of not having this community pride and the status of being on this really, significant list, right, of the National Register of Historic Places, is the incentives you get, either known or unknown, when you restore your home, and it could be a variety of things. So the initial ones I like to point out is there's the tax incentive administered by Illinois, the SHPO office, the State Historic Preservation Office. So there's state incentives and there's federal incentives. So the first one is you get 20% back for rehabilitating historic income-producing properties. So this is interesting to point out because people are like, oh, I have a single-family home, I don't qualify for that. Actually, you do if you have a rental in that building. Sometimes they also will accept if you run your business out of your house. So if you have a daycare business, or you work out of your home, that's an income producing household. Amongst the obvious, like a 2-flat and 3-flat, or a storefront or something. Obviously, we're not a commercial district like Clark Street or Bryn Mawr, but that's sort of how that one is registered. And then 25% is for so this is specific for the Ridge Edge redevelopment zone, so we don't qualify for that. And then, of course, the very well known the property assessment freeze, which I'm proudly to say that I think I said this at the beginning. We just received our approval yesterday for that, as well as the 20% and then the 25% state credit for rehabilitating income-producing, again, properties. So one's by the state and one's a federal. So you can combine them, which is really cool. You can go for all three, you can go for all four. It's not like one or the other. It's just if you qualify for it. There's other things too, which is really interesting, which is financial incentives administered by others. So these are not by the state, but they're part of the program. So there's loan programs, there's 203K rehabilitation loan programs. So this is allows qualifying private homeowners to borrow a single long-term mortgage loan to finance both acquisition or rehabilitation of an existing home, which is really interesting. This is more on the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Planning's website, HUD. And then there's grant programs, which I did apply for and did receive a grant that we're using actually to upgrade our signage, our street lamp signage throughout the district. Partially. It was mostly the funds are coming from the community like ourselves, so it creates this great community effort and pride in the neighborhood. Okay, so house example, I think I'm doing well on time. So this is our house, the 1300 block of West Norwood. It sort of looks, you're like looking at it, you're like, oh, it's not in bad shape, it's whatever. But looks considered to be deceiving when we bought the house. I mean, it's a great house, and a lot of the charm is here. But this is a view of the the advertisement, the real estate advertisement photos. None of the plantings actually. There's a tree that died in the parkway, and so all these plants fry in the sun in the summer. So they had to be rethought at. The porch is actually rotting. All these.
I see paint loss.
Yeah, it was almost like Money Pit a little bit, like the movie Money Pit from the 80s. So there was, it was not as bad as that, but a lot of the porch, everything was made with pine. It wasn't made with the right material, and it was rotting over time, and it wasn't kept up. So parts of it, like the railings, the parts of the lower part of all the balusters had to be completely replaced. You can see here in the backyard, a dead tree needed to be removed. None of this roof, this addition that was put on in, I think, the 80s, which is very lovely, made the house bigger. We couldn't use the roof because it was sloped. It was a sloped roof to drain the water, and so it was non-usable, and the railing was falling apart. There's also a lot of cracks in the foundation as it met the sidewalk because water was getting in at certain areas, so we had to fix some of the foundational things. It was more seepage, not like a flood. And then the roof, all the gutters were past their prime, and they weren't functioning. But we did get a new roof. We had a new roof. The owners put a new roof. They put in a beautiful new garage. There's some great brick pavers and the like that were there. And they did some renovations in the home and replaced everything with drywall. So that's a good thing. But they also stripped a lot of the original fittings, the crown molding, the base molding, stuff like that. But they kept some really good things as well. So we started right away with our renovations in 2023. So that included rebuilding the back porch. I mean, you can see all the new stuff. The terrace, second floor terrace. You can see the garbage from our kitchen. And you can see on the right all the new gutters that we added. And the repainting of the completely, we love the colors of that they painted, so we wanted to keep it within that style. You can see all the rot that was being replaced. This is actually the front porch. All the railings and spindles are completely replaced. They're all rotted. And here's what it looks like today. This is about a year later. We put in a concrete aggregate, so it looks historic, the sidewalk. We restored the front side stained glass window. You can see what's really interesting about these homes is like if you were doing well back then, you added all these bump outs to your house. So we have, I'm not saying our house is super fancy, but we have a lot of bump out. So you can see the bay bump out in the foyer, we have the one in the dining room, and on the other side, the living room has another bump out to the bedroom above. So it was also on a wider lot, so they're able to sort of expand the home and grow it, and builders would add in these things like, oh, you want a fireplace, or you want this or that, and the like. And you can see the restoration, sort of now the whole new railing on the left. We were able to reuse the balusters, but all new spindles, all new handrails, all new wood trim, and the like. We also put in a new fence, you can see it here in the back as well. And this is what the house looks like today. So this is our new, last year we installed bluestone pavers. We had all the landscaping redone so it's more historically accurate with local vegetation. And new porch light, we put in a trellis here, so during the summer this blooms. It grows at the side of the building and blooms beautiful white flowers towards the end of the summer. So I feel like we did a good job of having foliage, or flower foliage throughout the summer. And this is the back. We put in some boxwoods, new grill. But again, we had some really good bones, like we had a great paver system. Yeah, they're 1990s sort of concrete pavers. They're charming and they're nice. And so you sort of work with what you have in some ways. And then the inside was a lot of fun. So that we had, there's a lot of things covered, like when you walk through your house and we moved this furniture, you see someone's house with their furniture in it. And so once it's gone, you're like, oh, okay, now I know why that chair was there. That sort of thing. So that's just fine. It's sort of it was the fun of it. So these windows, this window to the left, were the original windows for the lead glass. And they were there, they just were bubbled and warped. And so we've found, I think they're Willow Glass on here on Clark Street. And another company, they specialize in Harmony, thanks. I don't know why I said Willow. Those are the other source. We used them, and they recreated and re-leaded using the same methods that they used 100 years ago. So they put the putty on the outside, and they used our original glass and lead to do that. And you can see the frame. All these frames were the sills, the inside of the frames were rotted, but they also were covered up with paint. So I hired a crew, a millwork crew that specializes. Peter's woodworking, fantastic. They came in, they stripped everything. I mean, it was like I don't think I could have walked in that house for a week because there was all the chemicals stripping everything. We had the original staircase, which is a gem, completely all solid oak, spindles, handrail, balusters, original paneling. I showed this picture to the left because we had these strange convection radiators that, oh great, they're flat, they save us space. They did not heat at all. So we removed them. Here to the living to the right, we recreated, there was a fireplace that was out of commission, it wasn't period. And a lot of the fireplaces in the Victorian era and even the Edwardian era, the fireplace mantle was as wide as the wall. So we wanted to make sure to find a period mantle of the 1900s and also make sure that detail that the wood went right up to the edge of the wall was intact so that we created that profile correctly. And none of the crown molding was still in the house, which was very sad. But we put it all back. And we have, my husband and I have a 3-flat down the street, and we took a piece of the 3-flat because all the original crown molding and baseboards are in there, and the picture molding was 3 inches high. And so we took one of a short wall, picture molding down, they recreated the profile, and then recreated it for this house. So all our picture molding was put back, so now we can hang the picture from the rail without nailing a nail in the wall as well. And then here are those windows restored. So we put in a new sill, we re-leaded its original frame, original lead, and they redid the putty on the outside, and we painted them white on the outside. We added the crown molding back to the dining room, so we have it crawling onto the ceiling. It's about 12 inches high, and then we have below is a 3-inch high picture reel, so we're able to hang, you'll see it in some photos, where we hang some artwork. More to the right is the dining room from the kitchen, where that red mark is actually where the original door was at one point to an exterior porch. So where we have an extension for our kitchen now is a porch of some kind, an enclosed porch. So we found the original door that was boarded up, in the 80s. And then the kitchen here, it was not really used well. It was in the same footprint as the old kitchen, but it it was like a wasted space. So we increased the size of the kitchen. And then you can see here during an 80s renovation, they just ran the floor up to the cabinets and didn't finish the wood floor. So we had a lot of those little things. This is the original kitchen. It was very small. You can see this outline here, the header, and then the turn was where the house used to end, and then it was extended in the 80s. This I put this in here and I laugh. This was the original closet behind the staircase. You can't even fit in there to use the restroom. So I don't know why that was put in there, but we took it out and put the closet back and then created a bathroom. But to use that, you have to like sit like that. It's very strange. But you know, whatever. And then here's the upstairs. It was all carpeted. We pulled up the carpeting and found the original floors, which was really amazing. And we found the outline of how the walls were laid out in the rear of the house. And so they took with the 4 rooms upstairs, right, the American Foursquare, and they made 3 rooms. So they kept the front master bedroom, the middle room, and in the back room, they made it into one large room. So we put that back. We still kept it one large room, but we divided it and extended the hallway back to how it was in the 1900s. And it functions better as well. And this is the original bathroom location. They put in floors for some reason. They have the glass block, and just very, they sort of stripped every character from it. There's some nice things about it in the sense of that it's its original location. We still have the high ceilings, but we wanted to restore that charm as well. And then the attic was this real jewel of a space. It was completely unfinished. You can see in the lower right-hand corner here, this is the original gas lamp, missing its enclosure, but that was still there, and the attic was just used as storage as it was. And the previous owners, they did do a good job of adding in the space pack system, which is a great system for vintage homes. It allows you not to you can fit the tubing in joists without doing drop soffits, so you can keep the height of your home. But this had an original staircase going up, these giant 3 dormers on either side. So the roof looks, the prairie style, that looked really low, but it was very tall. And the joists were equally divided around the house. So we had like a normal sized basement and a very tall attic. So we bought the house, unfinished basement, unfinished attic, with 2 floors in the middle that were finished, the first and second floor. So we finished all 4. That was part of the renovation. Here's the attic. If you guys are fans of American Horror Story, it reminds me of the basement. I was waiting for a red ball to go by. But we like ghosts, so we were happy to welcome them. But anyway, there's some hodgepodge renovations. There's a slab that was extended. What was really cool about these homes, our homes, or these types of homes that were built during this period, they have a side entrance at the ground floor, which allowed us for us to have another entrance and to set it up as an apartment as well for this purpose. And so here's the finished product after about 2 years of a year and a half of renovation. This is the foyer. We fixed the staircase, detailed, restored all the wood, all the trim, everything was stripped, the glass was re-leaded, the floors are refinished.
You kept the radiators?
We put in new radiators. So we got old. Thank you for pointing that out. We took all the conduction radiators out and went to downtown plumbing. I think it's Consumer Plumbing Supply, and they have all the radiators from the 1900s.
That one in the picture there, an original
This is not original to the house, but it's original to the period. All the radiators were original to the second floor. They're very ornate. But for the first floor, I just bought them as a lot, and I'm like, okay, let's buy all the same style from the same period, and it worked.
So they sell there's a place to buy the old radiators in Chicago.
Oh, 100%, yeah, plumbing, Consumer Plumbing Supply.
They're vintage.
They're all vintage and they're all original. And they clean them out, they either prime them for you or you can buy them unprimed. The unprimed ones are less expensive. And they deliver them to your house. Great resource. There's a lot of, and I'm happy to share all the resources we use because we had a really great team as well. And so we restored all the moldings and all the fittings to what they looked like. For the living room, we added all the crown molding back. We added a picture rail, or a lower picture rail that went throughout a datum line that went throughout the room. I found this fireplace mantle. It was not this color. It was this fireplace mantle, but it had like 100 years of shellac on it from Ohio. I love the style. It fit the American Foursquare style, and it cost as much to ship it than it did to buy like the mantle, but it's the right one. I did go to salvage one in places in Chicago, but they were too Victorians in style. And then I bought, actually this is from eBay, the tile. Nothing wrong with eBay, but it had the right style. We added that back in so it looked like a period. It was original to the house. One thing that was really great is this is the original pocket door. It's about 42 inches wide. And so that was in great condition. We refinished it, but it had all its original hardware and fittings. Same with the entrance to you can see our painting hanging there on the picture rail. And then the door to the left goes to the basement. So it's interesting. Some houses, they had the entrance to the basement up front, but this is behind the stair in the dining room, which is really interesting. And we suspect actually there was an original door here that was removed. We didn't add it back, but we added molding there, so we didn't want to see drywall corners. You can see all the woodwork. We added all the woodwork to the right, so that's all new woodwork to look like it was old. And then to the left is original oak door, original finish, original hardware. And then we added the baseboard and the crown molding, and then there's the pocket door closed that was refinished and restored. And here's our kitchen. So it's a lot different than the kitchen that was originally there. We put a wall up. You can see that architectural outline there of the wood and the soffit, and that was the original stop of the house. So we put a bathroom to the left. That's the original attic door. So we took it from the attic and we used it for the powder room door. And then we have a butler's pantry, sort of a Julia-style kitchen, which hides the fridge. And there's a little wine cooler there. And then we have a big island, cooking island, again using craftsman style, period-like cabinets, and all American made, I will say, which is great. And then we customized some things. You can get your local craftsmen to have the right details for your countertops and right period hardware and the like. Here's the powder room we added. So let's use this is this door that I was talking about before. I forgot that I had that there. And then we added all this. And then these windows coming up the stairs, we created. So we did what's called a picket style a window, which is very popular back then. We wanted something that was already in the house, so we just repeated the style. It could have been anything that was there, but usually, and we wanted it to be have a seated glass and have a bit more privacy. So you can allow light through, but you have. I don't think my neighbors want to see me going up and down the stairs. I wouldn't want to see them.
Is that photo on the left distorted?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so these photos, they are it's it's a small room. So on your iPhone camera, you can go 0.5 versus 1. So for the photos for Shippo, I wanted them to see the whole room. So some of them I zoomed out a little bit. So yeah.
It's not a super elongated sink, is it?
No, it's not. It's not a super elongated sink. Right, but it is a small sink. It's probably as wide as this piece of paper. But we actually, that was the one thing we did say from the original renovation. That was in that little closet before. We put a new faucet on it. So there's some things that we kept. And then this is the bathroom. So remember the bathroom with the wood floor? We completely redid it. And then the second floor had zero wood. No, the original floors are there, but they're under carpeting. No baseboard, no crown, all the window moldings were pine and they're painted. They're really sort of cheap and they're falling apart. So we stripped everything. And what's remarkable is all these doors were sort of those 1990s, sort of Home Depot-y doors. And then they were not lazy, but I don't know why they did it, maybe the cost, but they shortened the door heights. So when we took those doors out, we actually came across the original door height, so everything was a lot taller. And we had all the doors, we had all these doors recreated. And it's not as expensive as you think. I mean, there's a lot of people that do doors, they sell you the hardware and stuff. And oak is not as expensive as it was 100 years ago, so it's actually pretty practical. And if you go and you apply for your incentives, you can get 20 to 45% back of your construction costs. Following the standards, you have to make it look historic. It can't just be a modern box. And then these are some of the bedrooms upstairs. So that's that window. This is the light glass window we restored. It was sitting in our attic, laying on the floor. And then all these sills we put back. It's 1 inch thick oak that we put back. And then we recreated to match all the fittings, the trims, the casements, all that stuff matched downstairs, and then the floors were beautiful and we restored them. And then the final part is the attic, and there's a really good story about these attic windows, which are original, by the way. They were falling apart. They're made out of teak, and we had Peter's, the woodworking shop, restore them, and they had most of the restoration glass, which is that bubble glass that you see. That's one thing to note. All the windows in the living room were original to the house and had the restoration glass. Don't throw away your restoration glass. It's probably more expensive than your original windows, just because that glass is very expensive. We restored them, we stained them, and then refinished our attic, which had sort of a witch's hat style to it. And we used it for our TV room, but it also serves as another bedroom. This is a trundle style sofa, and it comes out. And we were able to add a little wet bar, refrigerator, and then a little dining table. Then we have our stair going up. I cladded it with beadboard, which you can get at Home Depot and have it painted. And then the last part is our one-bedroom apartment that we added to the basement. You can see that original door to the house. There were 6 original doors to the house. 2 of them were in the basement. That step-up area, we added a bedroom, and you can see it here. And then we have a living room, sort of dining room area, which we use currently as like a little movie theater, little projector screen area. And then we added one thing when we removed the chimney, because it only was servicing the water heater, it was no longer the coal water heater. We installed a laundry chute, so we were able to push our clothes down, and then here to the laundry room, which we added. And then we put in a steam shower and a shower and steam shower to the basement, which is really lovely for guests and the like, if they want to stay there or in the attic or wherever. And then here's the kitchen we added. So everything's hidden behind here. We have a vent. You can actually, if you open these doors, you'll see there's an oven you can cook. You can cook a turkey in it if you want. There's also, I didn't want to have like a physical stove in there, so there's hot plates if you want to use that. And then this is the second original door here, which led to what we were told is a canning room. We painted it. It was sort of falling apart, so we fixed and patched it and then painted it, and now it's used as a really nice rear storage room, which is below that island in the kitchen. And then here's the wood treads. We wanted to be period enough, install them with the lip, and have them be stained oak to match the rest of the house. And then here's some more, that's my house, restoration. Here's some more streetscapes of the neighborhood. Our great Chicago public, our libraries that we have throughout. Some great blocks here, the corner intersection. So one of many block parties that we throw, or different blocks throughout the season. And then what's next for Edgewater Glen? There's a lot next for Edgewater Glen. We have new neighborhood branding, which is like a logo on our mark, which you can see here, our EG. And that was released in January 2025. We have new street lamp signage, which is here, and that's being installed in a couple weeks. They're double the size of what our street signage now to be more prominent, more visual in the neighborhood. And we're adding new brackets, and these signs are designed to last for 10 to 15 years. We are also implemented and released and are available now through the edgewaterglen.com website. If you live in the historic district, historic house plaques. Here's the design of those. This is actually for my house. It's for John Lee's Cochran. Ours is actually going up today. We have our handyman helping us out with that. You don't want me with a drill. I'm not going to do well. And then we have, of course, our updated Edgewater Glen Association website, which we're planning for the end of August, so keep a lookout for that. It'll just more improved graphics, among the aesthetic things, but more functionality. It's sort of set up like a blog now. Now we want more presence and more interaction with for better community engagement. So look out for that towards the end of the summer. And then we have a great historic celebration, May 31st, Saturday, May 31st of this month, 1 to 5. Our rain day is the next day, June 1st. It's at the 1400 block of Glen Lake. Beautiful block. It's for EGA members, so please sign up for, go to edgewaterglen.com, become a member, association member, and for historic district residents. Restoration starts now, right? So restoring our district not only straightens our community pride, it also preserves our heritage for future generations. So let's build a brighter, better future together. And I just wanted to point out again, we personally for our home renovation, received the tax assessment freeze, 20% on our construction reimbursement from a from a federal level, and then 25% back on from a state level. So it's pretty incredible. Thank you.